Hare Krishna. So we'll start, our session by dedicating, to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the topic for today is art of work. And like always, we'll just walk through the agenda we'll be covering today. So the first topic today would be how to handle problems, work or renunciation. Now, we sometimes run away from the, we would like to run away from the problems, right? So we saw this, that Arjuna's, attachment, his argument was in prior sessions, his argument was that he wouldn't like to fight and he would like to renounce, right? So Krishna now, he will explain in 3rd chapter of Gita on whether one should renounce or work. Yeah, either you choose, you will face problems, right? So we'll see this further in the session. And then, if we work, then, good and bad work, because these cause tristes and happiness. Then work, which is, karma. So the law of action and reaction. And we all, I think, face in our day-to-day life where, we don't want to do something. We know it is not right, but we tend to do it, right? We are forced, right? We feel that force. So Arjuna raises this, question that, he doesn't want to do wrong, but he feels a kind of force which makes him do that. So what is that force? So Krishna will explain in this chapter. In this session, we'll cover that as what this force is about. Yeah. So, and then ending it with our practical tips of the day, right? So to start with the first topic, how to handle problems, work or renunciation. So like we can see in the picture here, right? The person is running away from the problems. And similarly, Arjuna wanted to do it, right? We learned it in the prior sessions that he was facing, his biggest problem of his life. Yeah, he was in the war field. He had his relatives and friends in front of him, and he had to do the war with them. So that was his biggest problem. Yeah, and he put forward his thought to Krishna that he would not want to fight and he would want to renunciate. And throughout in the 2nd chapter, we saw that how Krishna, he refuted all the arguments of Arjuna, and clarified him that he is in such a responsible leadership position. So, why fighting was so important for him, right? And this is the common mindset also. I think sometimes we come across people who think that, if you're getting into something like spirituality or Krishna consciousness, that means this person is going to renunciate, right? So we'll see in due course that how Krishna himself, when Arjuna was trying to renunciate, Gita was told, the whole fact of Gita being told was Krishna didn't want Arjuna to renunciate. He wanted Arjuna to work. So Krishna declines, that for Arjuna, renunciation. So we'll start today with our first shloka here, which is Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani gori mam niyojayasi keshava. So like as, just the translation of this, Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work. Now, why is Arjuna, coming up with this? Because in 2nd chapter of Gita, towards the end, Krishna, there's the last section, Krishna describes really, extensively as how a sadhu should behave. Yeah. And to correlate this in our prior sessions also, we learned how we should behave, right? We should not have something like the attitude of comparison with others, and we should be self-satisfied, not trying to step into somebody else's role. So that will not give us satisfaction, right? So how come, Arjuna is comparing that towards the end of 2nd chapter. Krishna spoke about how a sadhu should behave, and then in the end he says, Arjuna, get up and fight. So these two were contradictory for Arjuna. So the confusion, Arjuna was in confusion that whether I should renounce, or I should work. Yeah. So the thing here was for Arjuna, the ghastly warfare here, which he mentions, his mindset on that was if he does the war, yeah, that would be ghastly warfare because he will incur sin and other factors which we learned before. But for Krishna, we'll see how Krishna eventually explains, that for Arjuna, the ghastly warfare would be rather not doing the war, being a Kshatriya, being in such a leadership position, if he does not perform his duty, then that would be an adharma, right? And he will be not able to establish the dharma, which was the reason why the Kurukshetra war happened, right? So that is why this confusion. Now we'll just look into this a bit more on renunciation and work. So Arjuna's mindset was to give up everything and to go and take renunciation, sannyasa, right? But Krishna actually clarified what exactly is renunciation, definition of renunciation. So renunciation is not something where you run away from your prescribed duties or responsibilities, but rather it is about performing our duties, but with the attitude of renunciation for the results of the activities. And have that when we renunciate from the results, we are depending on Krishna, right? We have a complete dependence of Krishna. So renunciation from the results of activity is needed, but not the activity itself. So in this further, even if we renunciate due to problems, is that right? Even if someone takes up renunciation due to the problems in life. So, people think that let me give up all things, like Arjuna was thinking, and become a sannyasi, right? So we should not be renunciating or taking up sannyasa because of difficult life, right? Because of problems which come in our life. Yeah. It is one of the 4 ashramas, right? We have 4 ashramas, which is brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So sannyas is a very important ashram, right? So we will not, even if somebody, first of all, taking up sannyasa, and renunciating everything to run away from the problems, right? We think that taking up that we will not have any problems. But in due course, because we are not purified completely, and we still have that attachment to sense objects, even after taking sannyasa, after some time we will still, land up into problems, right? We'll not be able to survive there for long, right? So that is called as false renunciation, taking it when we are not ready for it, right? So this false renunciation, Krishna is highlighting to Arjuna that, Krishna does not allow it, nor do our scriptures. It is not right. So even when you renunciate, to run away from the problems, you might be able to, put that problem on hold, but you might be ready for a bigger problem, by running away from it in future. So similarly, we see, the cases where people, they quit their body, they don't renunciate, they take the other end where they just want to, commit suicide, as much as that. So, but runaway or suicide, that's the thing. We can compare this with one example here. Say we have a prisoner in the jail, yeah, and this prisoner, is sentenced with certain charges. Now he attempts to run away from the jail, right? And he is caught later on and put back into the jail. Now, when he's coming back to the jail, he will be, the judiciary will be putting extra charges on him, right? So he'll face extra charges, so more challenges, right? So now that attempting of escape, did not really help him to reduce the problems. Rather, it increased the challenges he has to face. Similarly, when somebody quits the body, currently they cannot face the problems, so they commit suicide. It's a heinous activity. So when we take birth again, we are put in, much more challenging situation by Krishna than you would by just, facing those problems in the correct pace. So inactivity, that is not doing anything, renunciating, or, committing suicide. So these are never a solution. Yeah. We have to face the situation, that is sent by Krishna, right? So Krishna wants us to be active, yeah, keeping him in the center. Our dependence on him will let us resolve those problems rather than running away from the problems. And we can see this, with a great example of how inactivity is not a part of, Krishna consciousness. Yeah, we see an example here of a devotee, Chandrika Mataji. She's a Russian lady, and she is 89 years old, and she has been in Vrindavan for around 14 years, and still, she knows only Russian. So you can imagine, staying in Vrindavan for this long, just not knowing the local language or even English, right? It must be so difficult. But she's so active, her whole day is, completely into Krishna consciousness activity, as much as, serving her Guru Maharaj. You can see the pictures here that, she also plants trees, where possible, and then, serving cows. She is so active that when we visit Vrindavan, she has the capacity to do, around 12 kilometers of Vrindavan parikrama, and she has much more, active than what we are. She can also continuously, after the Vrindavan parikrama, she has the capacity to do even the 21 kilometers of Govardhan parikrama. And, when we see her energy and dedication, we always wonder, what is it, where she gets this from? And she always answers back that, she gets it from Krishna. Yeah. So there is nothing regarding, inactivity in her mindset overall. Yeah. And I think we also learn from our scriptures and also in Gita, further that, as soul, it is the nature of the soul to be always active. Yeah. Be it in this material world or even when we go back to God, we are still in active state. So it's our inherent nature, right? So, and what do we actually obtain from this inactivity? We obtain nothing. In fact, we obtain more miseries, right? Like it kind of, our body becomes weak because it's not active. It starts getting different kind of, health problems, diseases. Then, because our body is no more active, we are not able to function it the right way. We eventually, even lose the respect in the society, right? So inactivity overall, it's not the way to go, right? Activity is, and that's what Krishna is explaining, right? So in next slide, we will just take it further with an example, like comparing our life with school, yeah, and the problems which we face to exams, right? So when we compare this, it's like the problems keep coming and going, right? So we have those waves, and it's like exams in our school. So if we try to avoid, attempting the exam, or, then eventually what is the result? It's we fail, right? It's we who are in the other side, in the losing side. So running away from problems or messing it up, that is not a solution, right? Rather, we should identify the right way, yeah, to handle and face this kind of exam, which is the problems in our life. Yeah. So far, I think it is clear now that we shouldn't run away from the problems, and rather we should face them, and while we continue to work, right? Now, when we are saying that we should work and we should not run away or renunciate, then now the question arises as how should we work, right? So we will take this with this example, where you can see a person, you can say overeating or restricting, right? So it is like overindulgence or just sacrificing it? Bhoga and tyaga. Yeah. So we always talk in our corporate lifestyle always about, something called as work-life balance, right? So we also find, we need to have a proper balance between our work and personal life, right? That's one of the key things which each of the corporate organizations are looking towards, right? So, but we always come across some people who are overly doing their job, right? Who tend to overindulge themselves, yeah. They stretch themselves really badly, and they, because they are, eventually they have health problems, or they get frustrated, or they get exhausted, right? So what we are trying to say here is we should not be, at two extremes. When we say work, not renunciate, work, but with a balance, have a balance. It should not be two extremes, either overindulging yourself at work or sacrificing the work in itself, right? So we need to strike a balance in our life, right? So otherwise we'll keep, oscillating between these two, whether eating too much or eating too less, and both would lead us to frustration or irritation, right? So, so doing things in wrong way, as either doing it in wrong way or not doing it at all, both doesn't work. So it is important to understand how to do the right thing, yeah, to have something like in this example, how to have a moderate eating, right? So that's what the balance we are talking about. Now, if we do overdo it, we are doing it wrong, and other way around also is not right, right? So it's like good work or bad work. So now we will see, when we are saying that we should work with, so far we should work, but we should work with a balance, yeah? So now we'll see what is good work and what is bad work, right? Because both of these, actions eventually leads us to, causing happiness or distress in life, yeah? Now, when Krishna is saying work, we should also be in a good position to understand, how should we work, right? So let's see what a good work and a bad work is, because ultimately we are all looking for happiness, and how can, this kind of work impacts the end result, right? So good and bad. Can somebody unmute and tell me, when you see this picture, do you find it a good work or a bad work? Shooting somebody or punishing someone?
Bad work.
Bad work.
Hard work.
Thank you. That pretty much looks that. And then when I say charity and truth, good work or bad work?
Good work.
Good work.
Right. So it straight away strikes our mind, right? When we see these things, that, it is good and it is bad, right? Now let's just do a bit more analysis on this. Now, when we say, shooting is a bad thing, act, right? Bad work. So if I say that the shooting, say by a soldier during the war, do you think it's bad?
No, it's good.
Right. And also the other picture we saw, someone punishing somebody, and instantly we got the mindset that it's bad. But what if what if authority punishing a criminal? Is that good or bad?
It's good.
So similarly, charity, we just saw, when we see charity, that comes into our mind. But when charity to a terrorist organization, or maybe a drunkard, is that a good charity?
It's a bad charity.
Yeah. And speaking, so this is a story, I'll just give a bit of gist. When we say about speaking truth to a butcher. So there has been there was a butcher who was trying to kill a cow, right? He was chasing the cow. And while he was chasing, the cow went out of his sight, and he really wanted to, kill that cow, right? So there was a person there who saw, this act, and this butcher asked that person on the way, "Did you see the cow?" The person told the truth, that the cow has gone there, in that direction. And eventually the butcher caught the cow and he killed it. So this truth said by that person, on the way, is that is that a good act or a bad act when he could see that someone is going to kill?
It was a bad act.
So, yeah, so exactly. So what do we get here? So to determine whether an act is really good or bad, we need to know a bit of background, right? So what do we see here? So action by itself, it's not wrong or right. Yeah. Good and bad depends on the intention, of that person or that situation. Yeah. Rather than the action itself. Yeah. And when we say good or bad, on what do we, there should be a standard, right? Where we can determine beyond this is good and below this is bad, something on it. So we should always have standards, right? In our corporate organizations, we see that we have like SOPs, different policies in place, right? Those are called as standard operating procedures, right? So these are the standards set, and if the employee does not follow that or follows it is good, not doing it is not right? Similarly, we have something like hallmarking for gold. When we go to buy a gold, when we see this kind of hallmarking, we know that it is, a good gold, good quality gold. When we don't find that, we are not sure about it, right? So similarly, how can we as human beings determine in our life that a guidance which can state what is good for us and what is bad for us, right? And that comes from Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita basically gives us the standards or rules and regulations for us humans, which is, as how we should live, how we should work, right? Now, further here, we'll go a bit more into this. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, we describe three kind of work, right? So this, as soon as we see the picture, we know that it is a bad act, right? So there are three kind of actions which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. One is karma, one is vikarma, and the third one is akarma. So bad acts are vikarma, good acts are karma, and actions done in Krishna consciousness are akarma. Yeah. So this, like you can see, it's a bad karma. So it's a vikarma, right? And similarly, in next slide we'll see when we say bad acts. Yeah. What are the pillars of this bad act? How do you determine why this bad acts? So there are 4 pillars of sinful activity. So that bad act was a sinful act, right? So what are the 4 pillars of sinful activities? So these are the 4 pillars, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit relationship. So this is how we should, avoid, these are like don'ts in our life, right? So when we go to a doctor, for getting some treatment, right? We are suffering with something, and the doctor gives, prescribes us certain medicines. Yeah. So those are the do's for us, right? Now, along with that, the doctor will also tell you some don'ts, right? Don't do this, don't do that, until you. So these are similarly the don'ts. Our scriptures also state do's and don'ts for us as humans. And if we follow these don'ts, it will help us to recover from this material life and start experiencing healthy spiritual life. Yeah. Now we saw so far vikarma, right? Now the second was karma, which is good act, yeah, which we call punya. Now again, in the picture we see, as soon as we see this picture, we feel it's a good karma, right? But again, like we just learned, don't go just by the actions. We need to know the background, right? So let's see an example here. Yeah. So we have these 2 robbers. They are in the bank, stealing all the money, and they have been successfully able to steal those, and they run away with those money. Okay. Now, once they run away, we see them, say, for example, if we see them fighting over that money, we think it's a bad act, right? But what if we see somebody, both of them sitting and very nicely distributing the money with each other. It may seem a good act for us, how nicely they are doing it, but when we know the background, it is not good, right? It is part, right? So punya for us might be that they are dividing it equally, but ideally they are not doing punya. It is a path, it's a vikarma. So if we know the background overall, it's bad act irrespective whether they are fighting or dividing them, right? So similarly, this charity, we spoke about it a bit earlier, right? So someone is taking, picking, pocket picking, and from that, what money he gets, he's going to give some percentage into charity. Yeah. Now, again, this may seemingly, when we see the charity bit, we might seemingly feel it's good act, it's punya, but ideally when we really look, it's not. Yeah. So overall, similarly, if we try to utilize someone else's assets, like in the above picture, the bank assets, or here, the person whom the wallet belongs to. If we try to utilize someone else's assets without giving it back, then we are not doing the right act. Yeah. The ideal thing here for the pickpocketer would be, if he found, the wallet, identify whom it belongs to, and give it back, or inform the police, right? So we need to make sure that we are not utilizing somebody's assets without giving it back to them. Yeah. Now, if we correlate this to our next slide, this is a shloka by Krishna in 5th chapter, 29th shloka, which is the last shloka of 5th chapter. It goes as Bhoktaram Yagnata Prasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Surudam Sarva Bhutanam Jnatva Mam Shantim Rachati. Now, here we see sun, moon, water, trees, mango, and brain, right? Where does everything, all of this come from? It comes from Krishna, right? Everything belongs to Krishna, right? So when we take this, so can we give this in charity? It is Krishna's, right? So, so when we kind of disregard, the existence of God, then it becomes sinful. Yeah, the whole source, of our charity or anything, it becomes sin. Yeah, we keep thinking, why do we need to worship God? Why do we need to do arti? Why do we need to offer food? So if we know this background, that everything is coming from Krishna, everything belongs to him, then it should be our responsibility to give it back to Krishna. Okay, now we can take this again, linking it to, like we gave examples for vikarma and karma, something for akarma, which is action in Krishna. So akarma means that act which will not cause, which causes no reaction. There is no reaction to it. When you do punya, good karma, you get good things. But when you do bad, you get bad in next life. But akarma is something which has no reaction, as it is completely in Krishna consciousness. Right? So we see here an example of cashier. Now, what is the role of a cashier in the bank? The whole day, the cashier, counts the money and gives it back to the bank, and whatever she gets, she doesn't have the thought process that the money belongs to her. Right? Say if she is facing some financial issues in her life, can she take some of that money from that? No. So it is her responsibility to give it back to the bank, which is the source. Yeah. Whereas she will eventually get money, as in the form of a paycheck, in the form of a salary, which is a prasad, which is enough for her to live her life. Right. So similarly, we should always take only enough for us in our life to live and give rest to Krishna. So that is what we call as prasad. Yeah, we can correlate this with, more with these two famous examples, Hanumanji and Arjuna. Now, Arjuna didn't want to fight, right? But he fought because Krishna told him, right? Full dependence on Krishna, right? So, and when we see Hanumanji, we see that, how he used, all his anger, his wrath, everything, in service to Ramji. Yeah. And this work is completely in Krishna consciousness. Okay? Whether you're angry, whether you're, kind, anything. Yeah? And why? Because they are doing this based on Krishna's instructions. That is the base. Anything done with Krishna's instructions will not cause reactions. Yeah. So this brings us, overall to a point to understand the laws of karma, right? So we learned punya, which is karma, papa, which is vikarma, and then, akarma, which is in bhakti, right? In Krishna consciousness. So punya is the mindset where one thinks that I want to enjoy God's property, but I'll follow God's advice. Yeah. Papa is I want to enjoy God's property, but I'll do whatever I wish. That is why it is called as vikarma. Yeah. And then akarma is we know everything belongs to Krishna, and thus everything must be done in God's service. Yeah. So how can we then, so overall we saw so far, renunciation is not approved by Krishna, work is recommended, and how to work, not to have two extremes, overindulgence or sacrifice. And then, how to work, good, a clarification on good, bad, and, akarma, which is in Krishna consciousness. And, how Krishna plays a role as being the source. So how should we give and take back as prasad, right? So now here we see, how can we implement this, right? Worship deity of Krishna, offer foodstuffs to Krishna, maintain family members, who can be devotees, yeah, who are devotees of Krishna, distribute prasad to community, rightly placed charity, right, and ethical work. Yeah, why? Because why are these needed, right? Because as we learned, that for us, Bhagavad Gita is the standard set of regulations to follow, which states all the how to work, right? The art of work. And why is it so crucial for us as humans? Because human life is a junction. If you do good acts, you have the you go to higher planets. If you do bad, you go to hellish planets, or maybe in the next birth we take animal birth, right? And we'll go through this a bit in detail further today in our slides, how important it is for humans, because we have a higher set of intelligence, than animals, So how important it is for us to utilize this human life the right way. Okay. So, and Krishna also says this in 3rd chapter, 10th shloka, which is 9th shloka, sorry, which is Yajnarthar karmano netra loko yam karma bandhanaha tadhartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So in Bhagavad Gita overall, where you see a capital H, he, his, that refers to Krishna. Yeah, just so that you know. So here Krishna is clearly saying, perform the work as sacrifice for Vishnu. Yeah. Only then it will not cause attachment. Yeah. Attachment, we have seen in last class how it eventually leads us to do wrong actions, right? Just with, as soon as we see some sense objects, and we'll touch a bit of that also today. Yeah. And further to this, Krishna also, states in 3rd chapter, 21st shloka, Yadyat acharati shreshtas tad evetaro janah sayat pranam kurute lokastad anuvartate. So whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursue. So we live in a world where we always look at people, right, for inspiration and take a leeway that, sometimes, oh, he is doing it, so it is fine, right? So Krishna is telling us that change can be brought in people when we ourselves first follow what we are expecting from others. Yeah. Now, this shloka clearly defines that, right? So we need to do things in such exemplary way, yeah, that it inspires people, and that's what Krishna is asking Arjuna here. Yeah. So first step of teaching is that we implement that in our life. We do it ourselves and then bring it forward, right? For example, we are all, like in last class we learned, that example where we are all in, as parents, as professionals, we are in a responsible leadership position, right? So if you, especially kids nowadays, we see that we keep telling them, you do this, that, but I think they will not learn by us, by hearing that from us, but rather we setting that example in front of them, which will make them to really, take that forward, right? So as simple as if we keep telling them that clean this, clean that, and if we ourselves don't keep house clean, how will they get that inspiration, right? So we need to set the right example with them, right? So that's what Krishna is saying here. Yeah. Now, with this, we come to the next topic of the agenda, which is karma. Now, which is the law of action and reaction. Now we see that there are various scientific laws, right? We have studied, during our schooling, like Newton's law and law of gravity, Newton's law of motion or law of gravity. So when that laws are around, how can we even think that humans are not under any law, right? We are not bereft of law. Yeah. Now, it is this karma which we are going to look, karma is just not a religious sentiment, yeah, but it is very scientific, yeah, because each action has its equal and opposite reaction. That's what we learned, right? So any action from us, any kind of work, results into reaction. It has consequences for us in this life or in the next life, right? So just looking at some basic aspects of karma, yeah, and it is here where we see, that kind of statement what we saw before, that human life is a junction. So responsibility comes when intelligence is done, right? Now, say an example of a dog, is breaking the signal. Will the police catch him? No, because we know that, the dog does not have that level of intelligence. Similarly, in places like Vrindavan, when we visited, we see monkeys doing anything and everything there, right? So they, they go into the shop, pick up things, but, nobody thinks of punishing, right? Because police will not think of catching, because they do not have a developed intelligence, but as human beings, we have a developed intelligence, and we know, what is right and what is wrong. And because of that, we will be punished for our wrong acts. Yeah. Now, that's what we learned, right? Every action has equal and opposite reaction. We have been hearing this since childhood, right? And that also applies here. Yeah? So now, why we are saying human life is a junction? Because with this, it is a junction where, we can either go up or down. So if we do wrong acts, we are going to get to lower hellish planets or even animal life, and if we do good acts, we go higher. Yeah. And if we do Krishna consciousness acts, then we'll go straight back to Godhead. Yeah. So, and we see this in one of the shlokas in Mahabharata, which clearly defines difference between animal and human. Yeah. So this is that shloka. Ahara nidra bhayamaitnam cha samanam etat pashubhir narana dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hinaha pashubhi samana. So eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. These 4 activities are common to both human beings and animals. The difference is that a man can search after God, but an animal cannot. Therefore, a man without the urge for searching after God is no better than an animal. So this is a very strong shloka, where we see that we may have better facilities, right? All these activities, eating, we may be eating in a nice dining table, nice house, dogs may be eating on the streets, yeah. But and also sleeping, we might be sleeping in a very nice bed, where they sleep on the sleep. But eventually, if we do not, do God conscious activities, then these 4 activities is what we spend our life in, which is equal to an animal life. Yeah. So that's why we say human life is a junction. We have a higher developed intelligence. And also we see in Vishnu Puran, they have mentioned that there's a verse which gives you a breakup of, we have around 84 lakh species, yeah, on Earth. And by our activities, whether we become a reptile, a mammal, or go into higher planets as demigods, so it defines you, those 84 lakh of species. And we don't know, with human life, we can see that we might have taken birth in all those kind of species and then got this birth, because this is higher intelligence birth. Yeah. So we should utilize it the right way. It is very crucial. Yeah. And we also sent you one of the shlokas, if you remember in the group some time back, that how much more value add it is to take birth in the Bharat Bhumi. Yeah. Somebody taking birth in that, they have higher opportunity, yeah, to get into Krishna. So it's our activities, and desires which make us get this human life, right? And we have to dovetail it to do more Krishna conscious activities so that we get, better next life and eventually go back to God. Okay? So what we see here overall is that, like I think last class we learned, there are 2 things. That one is your activities of the life, the work which you do, the karmas, and then the second is the desires which you have. It will determine your next life, these 2 things. Now, why do we, say hurry up? Because death is our final exam, right? And we don't know when we are due for, right? So death is similar to a final exam. So we need to prepare well. Yeah. And also just not prepare, but try to deliver well as well, right? Now, in 8th chapter, Krishna says, a shloka, that, antakale cha mameva smarana muktva kalevanam. So whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering Krishna, at once goes back to Krishna. And Krishna says, of this there is no doubt. He highlights that. So last minute preparation, it won't work, right? So quite a lot of times we see that, our parents say that, why are you doing spirituality now? We hear people, do it later. It's like, why are you preparing now? Just prepare, before the final exam. Do you really think you'll be able to deliver well if you do it in the last? So you should, that last moment preparation, we cannot depend on that. And in human life, we also see that in last moment, you don't know how our body, might be, in what miserable condition it might be. And in that, if we have not practiced in our day-to-day life Krishna consciousness, we would be more worrying at that time point about the body again than the soul, right? So this life is a big exam, lifetime of preparation is needed. We cannot think that we can deliver at the last minute preparation. And only when we have the consciousness developed right now, at the time of death, we can at least deliver what we can. So with this, this is the shloka, 8th chapter 6th shloka. So yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajati anta kalevaram tam tam evaiti kampeya sada tad bhava bhavita. So whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So Krishna says this. Yeah. So we have here a picture of Bharat Maharaj. I don't know how many of you know the story of Bharat Maharaj. So he was he was such a great devotee, and so much that he renunciated his kingdom, and he went to do more sadhana, right? So, but in the end, he got attached to a deer. He saw a deer and he got so attached to the deer that while leaving his body, he was thinking about the deer. So he eventually took birth in the next life as a deer. And what really, because he had done so much pious activity in his life, Krishna conscious activity, Krishna gave him the power that he could remember his past life. So he remembered his past life, and as a deer, he did all the austerities he can. He was, he went to the ashram, and he used to have dry grass rather than green grass, just to live and pray to Krishna, always having consciousness of Krishna. And then when he died, in the next life, he took birth as Jadabharata, where he was an exalted devotee. And then he went back to Krishna. So that's what we discussed, right? Different factors to switch the bodies is one is our actions, and second is remembrance at the time of death. And we correlated this before with a cockroach example that, if full lifetime you have done the activities of a cockroach, and then while you are dying, during your last moment, if you desire to be in a palace, then definitely Krishna will grant that. But next life, you will take a birth of cockroach in a palace, right? So that's how, it determines the karma. So some people say, that, oh, I didn't know that this was not right, so, I should not be punished, right? Ignorance, right? If they find the easy way around, let's just say we didn't know about it. Let's not know about it. They go back. So we see these we try to give here some examples for such set of people who think that ignoring the law would not have them act any karma. So for example, you see a car here, yeah, at high speed, and just because the person is driving the car, he cannot say he doesn't know the laws. If he's overspeeding, he will be caught and he will be fined, right? So the prerequisite for someone to drive the car is what? To know the regulations, right? Just saying that he doesn't know the law does not save him from punishment, right? Similarly, hygiene. So if we know, that this will cause some infection, and ignorance of that, oh, I didn't know, but that infection will still occur, right? Similarly, a child, the child does not know that, oh, that is fire, but ignorance of not knowing the fire, if the child goes and touches the fire, it will not save them, right? The child will still get burnt, right? So what do we learn here is, ignorance of the law is not a good way around to not be punished, right? So ignorance of the truth of life, will result us to do sinful activities, wrong acts, right? And then eventually leads us to suffer, right? And like I said, we are humans, right? So we are endowed with higher intelligence, provides us an opportunity, to explore, to know, to understand Gita, and to become free from ignorance. Yeah. So we have got this opportunity of human birth. So I request you all to just take the opportunity, and like we are learning here in this forum, please continue chanting, reading, hearing about Krishna, and that will let us, away from this ignorance. Now we come to the last agenda topic today is, I think, one of the key topics. Yeah, I think how many of us feel that, quite a lot of times we don't want to do something, but we feel that we were forced to do it, and we eventually do it, and that results into wrong act, right? So Arjuna, asked the same question to Krishna. Yeah, he asked for us that, I don't feel like, I know this is wrong, but I'm forced to think that way. What is it? And Krishna explains, so this is the question of Arjuna. So Arjuna vacha athakena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha anichan api varshneya balat eva niyojitah. Arjuna said, O descendant of Krishna, by what is one impelled to do sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by a force? And you guess what Krishna says? So so Krishna, says that he will explain this powerful enemy. This is the enemy which makes us get attached to things, so easily, and eventually we get angry, we get, annoyed, frustrated, and eventually we tend to do wrong actions. So Krishna says here, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Kam Esha Krodha Esha Rajaguno Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidhi Enam Ihvairinam. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Right? We learned this in the last class, how attachment to the sense object, when attachment increases, it becomes lust. And one lust is, with lust, it is problematic everywhere. If it is fulfilled, then it builds greed in us. Next time we'll start expecting the same. We'll develop more. And if it is unfulfilled, it causes anger. And how we saw it, we lose our intelligence and we tend to do wrong actions. Right? So this exposure to sense objects and attachment to that, and heavy attachment to that, causes lust. Yeah. Now, so every one of us, we are covered with some degree of lust, right? We are trying to exploit, God's resources, yeah, and and when we say someone else's property, what about, even exploiting your neighbors, your families, your friends' property is sinful. So we are exploiting here Krishna's property. Yeah, we have to have the mindset that everything belongs to Krishna. Yeah? And there are, in 3rd chapter also, they have mentioned that there are 3 layers of lust. And like there are different degrees of lust. And the highest number of thickest degree is in plants, then, is animal, and the least degree is with humans. And that's why we should take the opportunity of this life. Yeah. So, Indriyani manobuddhir asya dishtanam uchyate eter vimoharyati yesha jnanam avratya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of the lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of living entity and bewilders. So now Krishna tells us the problem. Lust is the problem. He's also telling us where are they sitting, right? So they are sitting in the senses, mind, and intelligence. These are the 3 places where lust is. Yeah, and this whole spirituality or devotional service process, what we are learning, it is targeting how to control these 3 places. Yeah, so that we can, curb this lust, and by regulating our senses, and then, we can have the transcendental intelligence. Yeah, and then we self-realize, right? We become self-realized. So, and how can we, engage these 3, sitting places into the right way? We'll see that further. So senses, how will you use senses? For example, you can see, use your eyes to see Krishna pictures, yeah, or Krishna, channels, and hearing about, Krishna Katha, smelling the flowers which you are offering to Krishna, yeah, tasting the prasadam which is offered to Krishna, and touching the beads of our mala, right? So this is how we can purify our senses. We can have them, in control. And the more and more we do, we can see that how we are getting, the senses under control. Yeah. And the second one was, so senses, intelligence, and mind, right? So now how can we use our intelligence, right? Intelligence we can use what we are doing right now, like listening about Krishna, learning about Krishna, reading Gita, one who, reads Gita, we develop that intelligence. It is a great service, in a way to purify ourselves, trying to understand Gita itself. And then mind, we know we have been discussing about mind a lot, right? So mind by controlling, by chanting mantra. We also learned what is mantra, right? Mantra is, man, mind, ra is which controls the mind. Yeah. So engage your mind, intelligence, and senses through these, processes into Krishna. And, if we do this, then lust will not stay. Yeah. And that lust is I think the base where we learned about sufferings last, class as well. And we learn, this kind of attachment, heavy attachment, which is lust, it causes, all the sufferings. And if we dovetail our mind, senses, and intelligence to Krishna, this will go, the lust will go and we'll get the ultimate happiness. Yeah. So request you all to, perform this, devotional service, hearing, reading, chanting, and taking prasada. And, that will help us to, control our senses and to, try to engage, into pious activities. Yeah. So with that, we come to the last topic, which is the practical tip of the day. And I'll hand it over to Sri Gaurav.
Thanks a lot, Nikita Mataji. Thank you very much for taking us through this important topic, which is, how should we perform our duties, which is again very practical, day to day, what we should be doing, what we should not be doing, in what consciousness we should be doing, right? And then sometimes people say, oh, I didn't know that. So I'm sorry, like if you didn't know, you cannot escape, right, from the punishment. Like if you are doing something, you should know, what is what, how it is to be done, when it is to be done, why it should be done. So as a mature human being, as a mature living entity, like we are different from trees and animals. We cannot say that, right? I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Like, oh, if you're sorry, you should be punished, right? So ignorance of law cannot save us from reactions, right? We cannot say, oh, I didn't know that eating non-vegetarian food stuff is wrong, right? Oh, I was born in West, like East or West, whether you're born anywhere, the laws are same, right? For white and black and brown, young or old, girl or a boy, they're all same for everyone, right? And we have discussed that how when we buy some equipment, we get a user manual. Similarly, when we got this instrument, the human body, along with that, we got a user manual, which is Bhagavad Gita, right? So we need to understand what is wrong, what is right? And also we should know the purpose behind work is more important than the work itself. Like, you may see two people working, in the office, right? And they may be working in different consciousness. The one person may be working with a consciousness that whatever I earn, I will utilize it in Krishna service. I will take care of my family who are Krishna's devotee. I'll give charity in people who are spreading Krishna consciousness. And other person may have a consciousness that, oh, wow, I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to go to the stadium and watch cricket match, and I'm going to go to the discotheque, and I'm going to drink. And, while, so what is the first thing which government opens after the lockdown, right? Come on, let's go. Queue up there and buy some alcohol, right? So if one works, that there are two different consciousness. The work is same, but consciousness is different. Duryodhana and Arjun, they were both fighting. One was fighting for Krishna and other was fighting against Krishna, right? So purpose behind work is the most important thing which we need to consider, right? And how we should do? We should work for Krishna in accordance with the law of Gita. Gita means Bhagavad Gita means Geet, song of Krishna, song sung by Krishna, right? What has Krishna sung? He has sung, he has given all the do's and don'ts, how we should lead our life, right? And Nikita Mataji highlighted, right? That what Arjuna was asking, that sometime we are forced to do something. Not that anyone else is forcing me. We ourselves are sort of not in control of our mind and senses, right? Even though we may know that we are diabetic, we end up eating sweets because, you know, our mind is not in our control, right? And Arjuna asked this question on behalf of all of us, that Krishna, what is that which forces us to do even though we don't want to do? And Krishna says that is lust, kama eshik, kam. And then we saw how it starts with contemplation, right? How there is a virus which is more dangerous than the coronavirus, which is terrible virus, the television, which is more contagious, right? And it is more widespread than the coronavirus because it is sitting in the main place, like where we should have had temple, now we have television, right? And that's the virus which is, you know, spreading this lust, right? So how can we overcome that? By involving ourselves in Krishna consciousness activity, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Right? You can start with chanting one round. I hope all of you might have already started. You know, we as Krishna conscious devotees, we try to chant at least 16 rounds in a day, which, you know, usually take 2 hours. But, you know, to start with, you can start with chanting one rounds and gradually increase upon reading, you know, reading Bhagavad Gita, reading Srimad Bhagavatam. They are the most important reading material. Don't spend time in reading newspapers and, you know, magazines. You know, if you transform your activity from non-Krishna conscious activity to Krishna conscious activity, you will be in control of your mind, right? And try to hear more and more Krishna Katha, right? And we have given here the link which can help you. You know, nowadays everything is digitalized, so we have a Bhagavad Gita as it is also, you know, as a soft copy. It is available online in multiple languages, right? And it is always better to have a hard copy. So if you don't have, you can always order it, right? From our website. There is a website gogita.in. So you can order through that website. We have other books also, right? So as always, you know, we like to again present this very, very important words. Prateyadhyayato Vishnum Tretayam Yajito Makhe Dwapare Paricharyayam Kalo Tadhari Kirtanat. Now, why are we highlighting these words again and again? Because it is so important, right? It is human mind, specifically in Kali Yuga, tends to forget. Why? Because we sometimes think, oh, you know, doing this is more important, you know, than chanting, or doing that is more important than chanting, which is why we want to reiterate this. There's nothing in Kali Yuga is more important than taking Harinam, which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And where is it highlighted? Why specifically Hare Krishna Mahamantra? It is highlighted in Kali Santarana Upanishad. And what is highlighted there? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam Nata Parantaropaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. That Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. These 16 names, composed of 32 syllables, are the only means to counteract the evil effects of Kali Yuga. There is no other mean, my dear friends. If you think you can chant any other mantra or you can do any other activity, so-called religious activity, right, that can save you from evil effects of Kali Yuga, that is our false perception. right? In all the Vedas, it is seen that to cross the ocean of nescience, there is no alternate to the chanting of the holy name, right? So this is very important for us to understand, right? And this directive has been specifically given to us by Brahmaji, right? Specifically in the Upanishad, which is primarily applicable for Kali Yuga people, Kali Santarana Upanishad. Okay, so thanks all of you for attending attentively this session. Now we'll like to open the floor for questions or any comments, or if you need any clarification, you can drop your questions on the chat box, or you can unmute your line and ask them. So I've not received any question on the chat so far. And like last time, like if you don't have, then I will have to ask some questions to you. Okay, so who will tell me what is akarma? Nishant Prabhu will like to attempt. Yeah, please go ahead.
Krishna consciousness work.
Very nice, right? Vikarma takes us down, karma takes us up to the Swargloka. But this karma and vikarma cannot take us away to Golok Vrindavan, to Krishna's lok. But akarma is the only activity which can stop you doing this bungee jumping, going up and down like monkey. Why you are doing this? Rather, go to your home. Where is your home? Golok Vrindavan is our home, right? So for that, we have to do akarma, Krishna conscious activity. Okay, so I have a question on the chat. So, like if we offer food to Krishna and in vegetable use garlic and onion, then? So, yeah. So good question. Like Nikita Mataji highlighted that there are 4 pillars of sinful life, right? Vikarma. What are they? First is non-vegetarian thing, right? Because Krishna is very specific. You know, he highlighted in Bhagavad Gita that Yagna Shista Shina Shanto Muchante Sarvakil Visha Bhunjate Te To Agham Papam Ye Pachyante Atma Karana. That if you are eating anything which is not offered to me, then it is sin, whether it is vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Please don't think that you eating vegetarian is a big thing. It is also a sin, because even vegetables have life. So if you are eating vegetables without offering to Krishna, it is a sin, right? So don't do that. Don't eat anything for your tongue. Ye pachyanti atma karana. If you are eating anything for your gratifying your senses, which is tongue, then it is also sinful. Then what we should do? We should have everything prepared with a mindset that we are preparing it for Krishna. Now, how should we do it? For example, like, we have this Trupti Bhabiji attending our session. Now, if someone comes to her home as a guest, right, and she knows that this particular person likes this thing, so she will prepare it keeping in mind that what the guest would like, right? But is she preparing only for the guest or for the entire family? She's preparing for the entire family, but keeping in mind the guest, right? Similarly, we have to prepare for the entire family, but keeping in mind who is the main person. For whom are we preparing? We are preparing everything for Krishna. Now, Krishna, like your guest, also has do's and don'ts. He likes something and he doesn't like something. Yeah, because he also has senses. He has transcendental senses, right? He has eyes, he has nose, he has tongue, he has ears, right? He loves playing with Brajvasis, right? He loves eating with them if they prepare anything with love. So what you have to do, the primary thing is you have to prepare for love, with love. Now, again, he has put down his demands. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. What do I take? I take, fruits, vegetables, milk products, right? But I don't take onion and garlic. although they may be vegetables. I don't like and I don't want to take, right? You cannot force upon things, right, to your guest, and nor can you force upon things on Krishna, right? So Krishna has set up these things, that what does he like and what does he don't like. So onion, garlic, when we are preparing anything, when we are preparing bhoga for Krishna, we cannot put onion, garlic, we cannot put mushroom, we cannot put eggs or any non-vegetarian thing. Those things cannot be offered to Krishna, and those things should not be consumed. Okay, I hope that answers your question. So I have one more question on the chat. When we say one round of chanting, what does one round signifies? Okay, so this is our chanting beat, right? You are seeing, you are able to see, right? This is our mala, right? So the mala starts, and this mala has 108 beats. So on one beat, every beat you have to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, right? And then you go on to the next beat, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. And you keep on going, right? And then finally you will come here to the last beat. You'll chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. If you want to chant second round, you have to turn, right? It starts from that direction. Don't cross over the head beat, and you should not chant any mantra on the head beat, right? So you should, this is 109th beat. You only have to chant on the 108 beats, right? And you don't cross over, like you don't jump across the head beat. You chant then backwards. The second round will be from backwards, right? So this is how we chant 16 rounds in a day. It usually takes 2 hours. Someone, if he is able to chant faster, they can finish it in 1.5 or 1 hour 45 minutes. Someone who takes little more time may take 2.5 hours, right? So yeah, good question. Okay, any other question? Yeah, yes. Hari Krishna ji, again, like this time also I'm not able to hear you clearly. If you can please drop your question on the chat and I will reply. And in the meantime, I'm taking question from one more question which has come on the chat. Is consciousness and soul measurable? Yeah, so the size of the soul is mentioned in the scriptures, right? And consciousness, it cannot be measured by instrument, right? So what is consciousness? Now, first is, what is the size of the soul? Size of the soul is mentioned in scriptures at 1/10,000 size of the tip of the hair, right? So and soul also has a shape, right? So we have to understand this thing. Soul also, it is soul who we are, not the body, right? We are soul. And now, what is consciousness? Consciousness is the symptom of the presence of the soul. Consciousness is the symptom of the presence of the soul in the body. If soul decides to walk out of the body, then there will not be any consciousness. Okay, so that is simple thing. Consciousness can be measured by symptoms, right? Not so called by any other instrument, right? So you have different things to measure different things, right? Different objects. Similarly, consciousness is known by its symptoms. Okay, I hope that answers your question, right? If it doesn't, then you can unmute and ask again to clarify. Hari Krishna ji, I've not received your question yet. Will you like to? Bishwa Prabhuji, yeah, please.
Yeah, actually, my voice is bad, so just wanted to understand this how body is holding this. If it is measurable, if there is any size defined for this soul or consciousness, how body is holding? Is there a way is there, it can happen if consciousness can be bigger than your body, or soul can be bigger than your body?
So it is not the body which is holding soul. It is the soul which is holding the body. Right? If soul decides to leave the body, then the body disintegrates. Right? We know what happens to the body. Right? Now, can soul be bigger than the body? In what sense? Like, body per se has no life. Right? Soul is there in all the different living entities. Like soul is there in the body of an elephant, also in the body of a bacteria, in an ant. So soul is there in all these different bodies, right? And it is the soul which is driving the body. Like, for example, a car. If a car is going, you are looking at it from a distance, and you see that car is going from one point to other point. By default, you know that there is someone who is driving the car, right? So we understand, if body is conscious and body is active, body is alive, that means there is a soul which is acting through the body with the help of, primarily there are three things which drive the body: the soul, the super soul, and the material nature. We will understand it in more detail when we study Bhagavad Gita. It is explained in the 5th chapter and again in the 18th chapter, that how does all these things contribute to we working. When it comes to consciousness, we have to purify our consciousness, right? Now, in current point of time, our consciousness is polluted. We are in material consciousness, thinking that we are this body, right? Everything which is related to the body is meant for my exploitation, for my gratification, for my enjoyment. Today, Nikita Mataji highlighted that no, things don't belong to you. Things belong to Krishna. Because Krishna has made this brain, Krishna has made this body, right? Krishna has made the fruits, the nature, everything. We say, my nature is bad, my nature is good, his nature. Whose nature is this? What we see all around, it is Krishna's nature. Krishna has made this, right? So everything belongs to Krishna. So when our consciousness is dovetailed from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness, then our consciousness is purified. And that is what is the meaning of word yoga. Yoga means to connect. When we connect the soul with the super soul, our consciousness with Krishna, what Krishna wants us to do. When we understand what is our relationship, and when we act in that relationship, that is what is Krishna consciousness. It is a science, and you will understand it gradually. But this is just a gist of it.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so Hari Krishna Prabhu has dropped his question. As kings Ram and Krishna had non-veg food, which is Kshatriya Dharma. No, that is what I just told. So they don't take non-vegetarian food. They don't consume non-veg food, right? Krishna has specific things which he will take. Otherwise, he will not take, right? So Krishna loves butter and milk, but that doesn't mean he doesn't eat food, because there are class of people who just think Krishna only eats butter and sweet. No, my dear friends, that custom that you only offer sweets to Krishna and butter and milk to Krishna is wrong. Krishna also wants your food. When you eat rasgulla, paneer and malai kofta and good paranthas, do you think Krishna will not like to eat? You starve him just by feeding butter and sweets, and you eat all the pakoras and samosas. We should offer everything what we prepare in our kitchen to Krishna. That is what Krishna demands in Bhagavad Gita, right? So Krishna, Bhagavan, Ram Bhagavan, all the Vishnu Tat, they never consume, and actually, just to clarify, because I am a medical doctor, I can help you understand. that why non-vegetarian food is not meant for this human body. Because please try to understand that everything has its own use, right? It is not that, animals are not to be consumed. Yes, animals are to be consumed by other animals, not by us. Why? Because a body is meant differently when it has to consume some vegetarian food and non-vegetarian food. Now, for example, let's compare our body with the body of a tiger versus cow. Okay. Now, if you start with your teeth, our teeth are not meant for eating non-vegetarian. They are not as sharp as the teeth of tiger. Just, tear the flesh. Then the acidic juices which are secreted, the saliva, hair, and the gastric juices and all other, juices which are secreted, they are not so strong that they can digest the non-veg food. They can only digest vegetarian food, right? Our intestine is very large, same as cow, but tiger's intestine is smaller. Why? Because it can excrete the non-vegetarian product faster. While if we eat non-vegetarian product, they will hold on in our body for longer time, and which causes diseases. And one of the most dangerous disease is cancer. I think so. We discussed that last time, right? So all in all, eating non-vegetarian product is not human. It is inhuman. It is not meant for human beings, right? For us, it is primarily vegetarian food stuff. And don't be happy by just taking vegetarian food stuff, because even monkeys are vegetarian, right? So don't be proud of being a vegetarian. So what you have to be then? You have to be prashaditarian. Only eat prashad. Only eat food which has already been offered to Krishna. Okay. Very good question, Hari Krishna ji. Okay. And any other question? Okay, I don't have any new question on the chat. And I don't see any of you unmuting yourselves. So with this, we will try to end the session. I wish you all the best. I wish you start chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I hope you live a Krishna consciousness life. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.